Hey everyone, I'm Victor Dwyer with Piranha, and this is the Failures and Wins podcast. Today we have Leo on, and we're going to go through some failures and some wins that he went through, an intro of who he is, how he got into the e-commerce mess that we all went through, and kind of just navigate from there and just kind of really dive into what it takes to really build an e-commerce business and really make it a success. Leo, thank you so much for joining. Please give us an intro of how you got into all this.
Yeah, so my name is Leo Carrillo, co-founder and CEO of Craft. How I got into this, well, it all started back in 2018. Me and my co-founder Alex, we both had a passion for men's grooming, specifically hair products. We
Mhm.
felt back in 2017, all the way up to that point, that there was no products that could really hold our hair and give us the finish that we wanted. So we thought, why not make our own products? And yeah, kind of the rest is history. We went from hair care products down to skincare products and much more to come.
That's amazing. One thing I noticed on your products, you have really, really good branding. Like really good product packaging. What what process did you go through? Obviously, you went through a pretty intense QA process to like really go through the your product packaging. What was the process you went through to make sure you just have really solid product packaging?
Well, thank you very much for the
Yeah.
compliment. It wasn't always like that. So,
Uh-huh.
backstory on that is back in the day, I actually have all of our products behind me, the evolution of haircraft to then craft. So, it wasn't always like that. We had a MVP branding when we first started to now we have our director of brand, Zach. Shout out to him. He's really the reason why our brand looks the way it looks, it feels the way it feels. But in terms of the QA process, what we go through is what actually resonates with us, like the brands that we look to, that we're familiar with and that we purchase from, and kind of like making it more modern and sleek and minimal, because a lot of the brands out there, at least in our space, in the grooming space, take up a lot of the white space literally on the packaging or black space. And for
Mhm.
us, we just want to keep it simple. Like, hey, what does the product do from the hold, the finish, the goal of the product, the directions, if you need to contact support. And then we try to make sure that every product looks a little bit different too. We got a little color line specific to our hair products, but
Hmm.
we just like to keep it fresh. I know that sounds kind of broad, but we want to make it look pretty minimalist to make it simple for men, because guys are pretty simple.
I can agree with you that like exactly. Yes, we are very, very simple. And
One other thing on that
go
too
ahead.
is that what we found also is that a lot of brands, especially when we were buying products, like we didn't know what the product did. And it's like a hair cream is a hair cream. Made it very simple. We didn't try to create a brand new name for our products. So all of our products say exactly what it does: hair clay, matte finish, hair cream, etc. So that's a big thing, that we don't try to overcomplicate any of our products when we're launching them.
Just curious, did you ever go through any A/B testing, like using PickFu or anything else, or was it kind of just kind of like with internal, like saying, "Hey, does everyone in the company like this type of thing?" Did you go through any QA process on that? Did you ask friends or family? Like, did you go through any of that?
Yeah, we actually went through a lot of it. We never used any of those platforms, but we did was actually post on our Instagram stories, whether
Hmm.
it was always through our personal pages, never through the company, of
Hmm.
just saying like, hey, we're thinking about doing this packaging versus this one. Here's a vote. Which one do you guys like more, left or right? And then of course friends and family. But at the point we're at now, it's all internal. We make those decisions.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, like it's so vital, especially like on Amazon, to have your a really good product packaging, especially on the main image. And what's awesome is you have the product identifier super big. So if it's hair cream, it's huge in hair cream. And from an Amazon like marketing perspective, it's really smart to have like those texts really, really big, because when people go through images, people don't read anymore. So when people go through the images, they see, oh, hair cream, oh, and then they click on it. So it's really smart from just a marketing standpoint on your main image to have your text that big. It's a really good strategy on that side.
Appreciate that. Like literally everything matters, right? I mean, we know how whether it's on our website or Amazon, like every second matters. So you just want to make it as simple as possible to just get the click initially and then
Mhm.
conversion.
Exactly. And what would you say is I want to dive into a little bit about your journey a little bit. And what would you say some of the failures that you went through when creating your company? Was it if it was like your first product packaging, whatever it may be, like or maybe like you had a hurdle somewhere in there, maybe you lost inventory or something else. I'd love to get some of your failures in there and the ways you kind of got around it, the ways you kind of navigated through that failure. That'd be super valuable.
Yeah, that's a great question. So
Mhm.
I don't like to say like just failures. I'd say L's as in learnings.
Yeah,
And one of the first big ones was when we first launched our gel pomade. That product, we got it to rank organically. But what happened was once we started to rank and we started getting units sold, which was super amazing, and we were so grateful for it, we started getting a lot of negative feedback. Like we were getting a lot of
really.
stars. Oh yeah, and we thought the product that we made was amazing and it was like the perfect gel pomade back in the day, but there were so many things that we didn't QA when we first launched. Like we didn't have a box to put our product. We didn't have an insert that shared with customers how to use the product. We didn't have customer support. And even just the testing of the formula, it was only between a few people, my co-founder and a few of my friends, versus actually getting people to test the product. And even just the expectations, we thought, it does this and does that, and we kind of oversold the product. So that was one of the big learnings that we took, was when we first launched that, wanted to see if we could first launch a product and if there was demand for it. But we just got those 1-star reviews that ruined the product, and we actually had to relaunch it. So the learnings from that, excuse me, was just making sure to QA the product, from the formulation, the scent, the color of the product. These little
Mhm.
things that are not little things now, these are big things. To the packaging, is it easy to read how to use the product? Is there a way for customers to get in touch with you as the brand owner? And I mean, that was a huge thing for us because we invested so much in that first product, and then it kind of was a dud, but we took that, relaunched the product, and now that product is Amazon's choice for gel pomade.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people would have launched their first product and say, "Wow, Amazon suck," or like whatever, like e-commerce sucks, and then just like probably would have just said, "Oh, yeah, it's not worth it." But that's awesome that you like took that and you extrapolated from it and say, "Okay, here are the things that we got to update and fix on this." And because there is no rule book for this, there's no like set like, "Oh, this these are the things you have to do," and it's really nice to that you went from like, "Hey, let's take that, let's build off of it." And you create another product. And I assume that other product was had a lot more success with a lot less negative feedback, right?
Oh yeah, that
Mhm.
product, like I said, it's Amazon's choice. It's been Amazon's choice since we
That's awesome.
relaunched it, and it's our second bestseller. And I mean, it's been in multiple publications for the very reasons we didn't do well at the beginning. But yeah, product feedback is everything, and getting customer feedback before launching a product, and then just making sure you set proper expectations, because I'm sure you know this, is that the Amazon customer is the most critical customer, which is great, right? Because you get to the truth very quickly on Amazon. But if you have a bad product, like that's not a good thing. So
And what's
absolutely.
amazing is you didn't let your pride of your product get in the way to actually listening to the end consumer, which is amazing. Because if you wrap your pride up and your identity to your product, you're gonna go like, "Oh, this is amazing. There's no negative feedback," and then you cancel out all the negative feedback and you don't listen to the end consumer anymore. And you could have just kept pushing money behind it, said, "Oh, like these people don't know what they're talking about." And then kept pushing it, and it most likely would end up being would end up failing. But luckily, you kind of took your pride out of it and kind of humble and say, okay, obviously these things suck. If I'm getting a reoccurring thing, cool, let's fix it and move on. So it's really amazing that you're able to take your pride out of your product and really make a better one off of that, and you're actually listening to the end consumer. It's really amazing.
I appreciate you saying that, man, because if someone's taking their time to leave feedback on your product, that's time in the day, and right, time is
Mhm.
precious. So
Yeah.
you can either take that and do nothing with it or actually iterate on it. And I think that's one of the most important lessons that we still to this day with our products are very critical with. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what would you say it was another big lesson that you learned? So that was a really good perspective from like, hey, gotta have customer support. You gotta educate the end consumer. You gotta listen to the end consumer. You have to do a bigger Q&A process, most likely. Is there anything else in that that you think is really important that most entrepreneurs or people in e-commerce should be doing that they aren't currently right now? You might say, "Oh, I see all these people doing this, but they should be doing that." Like, is there any other lessons that you learned throughout your process that would be helpful in there?
Yeah, I think a really basic one to tie off the first point is listening to your customers on the products that you should launch and
Yeah.
really sticking to that, because you work so hard to get those first customers in the door and they're buying your products. And if you try to stray away from what your customers are actually asking you to make or manufacture, then you're kind of going outside the lines. And for us, we did that early on. Our beard oil is one of our products. It's funny now; it's one of our better selling products. But before, we launched our gel pomade, our hair clay. Those both became very successful on Amazon. And they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do a beard oil because that seems like a hot product." And it was a total dud. Like I said, now it's done much better. And but at the
Mhm.
beginning, it was like, wow, like why did we do this? We invested all this money and time into this product that no one was actually buying it, and that was a poor use of time and money. And I'd say what we've learned from every product that we launch is it's got to be based on demand. It can't be, well, that's a cool product, the other brands are launching that. Every brand has its own persona, every brand's customer is different, so you want to build to meet the demand of what your customers want. And for us, like, all of our products are based off of that. What
How do
do
you
your
find
customers
that
want?
information? How do you communicate to the customer saying like, "Hey, this is the next product that has a lot of demand." How are you finding that information to say like, "Okay, this is a product that's worth or not worth launching?"
Great question. So what we'll do is we'll send an email survey to our customers saying like, "Hey, what are some of your dream products? What would you
Mhm,
like for us to make?" And we'll also put some options too. What do you think about these products? And we do this at least once a year, saying, what do
mhm.
you think about these products? Which ones are you most interested in? And then based on that survey, we'll look at them like, wow, like those are products that we never thought of getting into. For instance, we got into skincare in 2021 because of the survey we did in 2020, which our company's name was Haircraft Co. So we're
Mhm.
basically siloed into only making hair products. And I remember when I was looking at all these customers' feedback on skincare, I'm like, a cleanser, that seems so, like, that's not us, like we can't do that. But the more we kept seeing that reoccurring feedback, it's like, all right, we got to listen to our customers. Clearly, they want this product, so we should make it. And yeah, that's kind of our process. Is that we'll also do surveys on to our customers as well, saying like, hey, who are you? Like, what made you buy from us? Where did you find us? Was it Amazon? Was it a Facebook ad? Was it a publication? And then it gives us a better idea of like how we got our customers, but also the customers what they want from us in the future.
That's amazing. You're probably the first person I've ever heard that actually doesn't just do automated. I've always seen the automated surveys, like the ones that like say, "Hey, what was your experience with the product?" Like that type of stuff. But I think you're the first person I've ever heard that actually uses surveys for like actionable like next products. That's really really smart. Obviously you have to have a pretty good customer base on your website in order to like be able to like get that kind of feedback. But
Mm-hmm.
it sounds that's a really smart strategy to really finding your next products to launch. And you eventually listened, and then you eventually did launch in skincare, which is um, a big undertaking by itself. There's a lot to big pivot. You had to really,
Oh yeah.
really transition like the name, the branding, all the way over. Just that's a big decision. So obviously you thought it was worth it.
Definitely, definitely.
What made you, since that is a really big decision, what was the driving factor in making that? Were you like, okay, so many people are saying, hey, we want this to be a cleanser. Hey, we want this to be this. Like, what was that big decision making point saying, hey, like, let's go away from haircraft, um, and going just to like just the craft for like for everything, skincare and things like that? Because that's a pretty big pivot in that. What was the final decision making factor for you saying like, hey, let's go all into this type of thing.
Yeah, so there's a few things. One is, can we make that product? We have an amazing manufacturer, and can they even make this type of product? And can we make something better than what's already out there in the market from what we're using, right?
Mhm,
Because if we can't make something better out there, then there's no point in doing it. So check, we were able to do that.
mhm.
Second is opportunity, right? As a business, like you got to make money from these products.
Yeah.
Can we do that? Third is, how much different is the skincare market compared to the hair care market? Pretty different. How can we
Mhm,
vet how other brands are doing what they're doing and then iterate and make it better? Because we don't, at that point, we'd only been in hair care for almost 3 years, 3 years now, going on four, that now we're going to make a pivot into skincare. Will people trust us? So getting
mhm,
that credibility, can we do the research to be able to talk about what we know about our products and what makes them different? Check. Then the bigger thing was, like, as a brand, how are we going to be able to pivot as a company, because we can't have Haircraft Co. with skincare products. That's a little confusing. So that
mhm,
that was the bigger thing, is like thinking about that long term with our company. So we didn't want our name to be our own pigeonhole. So we decided what would be all encompassing, where there's no limit, because there's other products that our customers have asked for, whether that's shampoo, conditioners, body scrubs, etc., that we want to be able to make and launch later on. So we came up with craft. We felt that that would be all encompassing. And our tagline for our company, our motto is master your craft. We believe that the people that buy from us live by that. We believe that they're go-getters, hustlers, entrepreneurs, marketers, etc.
mhm.
And for us, that's part of the process, mastering craft. So that was our QA process to going into skincare.
Wow, that's amazing. It really sounds like you really went, into depth and you really thought through, like, almost everything in there. So that was really, you're very obviously very diligent to make sure to, like, "Hey, we gotta hit on all these points. We gotta go for uniqueness." That's really good from a product launching perspective. So, you obviously learned from your first one when you were like,
Oh,
"Oh, yeah, let's just launch it," and now you're like, "Okay, boom, let's go super diligent. Let's go make sure everything's good." And launch from there. So that's really, really smart. Listen to your customers, pushing it from there. That's really great. And going from that, is there any other aspect of the business that you find interesting, whether it's the marketing side of acquiring new customers, acquiring those loyal customers that you're talking about? Um, After like the iOS 14 update, that was a big hit for a lot of D2C websites
yeah.
because a lot of the Facebook traffic ended up sucking essentially, versus the previous. So, how did you kind of navigate all these obstacles of like either driving external ads to your website or going through those marketing to acquire new customers? How did you kind of navigate that?
Yeah. I mean, a few different things. So we were hit with that too,
Hmm.
and definitely affected our business. The way we looked at it is like, what is working? We need to double down on what's making us money, and like any business should do that. What's making us the most profit? So Amazon drives a majority of our sales.
Yeah,
So doubling down on our Amazon ads. The second thing that we started to get into is Google Shopping and Google Text ads. So we know we do really well on Amazon with those type of ads, PPC ads. Can we do that on our website as well?
yeah.
So we started to double down on that, and that's been really good for us.
Good.
In terms of other pivots, though, in terms of the marketing side for us, like PPC is our bread and butter on it, specifically to Amazon. And I think one thing that is super important for entrepreneurs to really focus in on is, there's millions of keywords to bid on, but what are the best keywords for your product and for your brand? And say our hair clay, hair clay, you would hope that the keyword we're going to convert on is hair clay, right? But if
Yeah.
it doesn't, that might not be a good keyword, whether it's product market fit for that customer. But finding the right keywords, but not also bidding on the wrong ones either. And what I mean by that is based on customer expectations is hair product for men. That might not be the right keyword for your brand just because you're trying to get more traffic and that might be a high volume keyword. Is really focusing on keywords that generate the most revenue, the most profit, and will likely give you the most 5-star reviews. Because we've also had this happen in the past where it's like you're bidding on these way too broad keywords, and then those customers come in and then they start leaving poor reviews, but they didn't know any better. They've never tried a hair clay, so they don't know what to expect, and then leave negative reviews.
Yeah, 100%. The only problem, it's really hard to track. Like, oh, you're bidding on the search term. Like, and increasing the spend behind that. Like, oh, all of a sudden you have like 1-star reviews. That like delay is gonna have. It's gonna be really hard to track that type of thing to like to see the correlation between the two. So it wouldn't be the easiest thing to track. Saying, hey, I'm bidding on the search term, and all of a sudden I'm getting negative reviews 30 days later. There's a huge delay in that, so it'd be really hard to really track that. Um,
Voice of the
I would
customer.
assume. Mhm.
Definitely the voice of the customer and your customer trends. There's no way
True.
to perfectly like sync that, but
Mhm.
based on what people are saying of like, hey, I thought this was this product and it's not. We've seen it happen with our brand where it's like we start bidding on these broader keywords that are like kind of closely related to our products, but they're not
Mhm.
exactly it. Then we're getting those 1-star reviews, obsolete that, or maybe even change something in our title because, I mean, like we said at the beginning, customer expectations, everything.
Yeah, 100%. So it sounds like you're really close to your customer. Do you have a built out social media? Like, do you use do you have a company like TikTok, Instagram, or anything else to communicate to that customer on a more granular level? Like, what has been your strategy so far through social media to really help growing out your company?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram, we have a TikTok, we have a Facebook page. I'd say the most interactions we have with our customers are through TikTok and through Instagram, Instagram being number one.
Hmm.
And I mean, through posts, through our ads, I mean, we get comments, DMs all the time about things. So,
Hmm.
yeah, the way we use that is just like any other brand is just telling our
Hmm.
story, talking about what products, sharing the lifestyle. Like, this is who we are as a brand. And on Amazon, you don't really get the chance to. There's Amazon posts, but it's not the same thing as like interacting with people that you'll never meet and them getting to see like, okay, this is the type of lifestyle brand that Craft is.
Yeah.
And then TikTok, we use that as that's an awesome channel, and even Reels too is tutorial videos for us. I mean, all of our tutorial videos on showing guys how to use products do so well and get the most views, and these are the silliest videos, but it's cool because guys love that, and it tends to be the most like clickbaity videos of like a guy like literally putting sea salt spray in his hair and then using it. It's like we'll have guys comment like, I never knew that's how I did my hair, and we'll lean into that. So definitely
Mhm.
recommend that for brands too. Is if you got products like ours that guys don't typically know how to do their hair, or it might be a little bit more complicated, doing
Yeah.
that front end part of explaining and sharing how to use your products.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of brand lack videos by itself just in general. Like it's 2022, almost 2023, and if you don't have like a typical product video on your product, it's like what are you doing? Like it's like you got to have user generated content cuz like Amazon is becoming more of a creative place cuz before it was just like Google, it was mainly just search and that was basically it. And even Google went the same direction. Now you have YouTube ads, display ads, and all these other fancy things. And Amazon's going through the same transition right now, where it's primarily search, but now sponsor brand videos are a thing. Sponsor brand headlines are a thing. Sponsor displays a thing. So, like, it's going to be really critical in advertising strategy to have good videos, have good user generated content, and have a good flow of content for your business, or you're gonna be screwed. Like advertising is becoming so creative and so like creative play essentially. And if you're not being able to advertise, if you're not advertising effectively, you got to have really good videos. So it's going to be really critical, especially in 2023.
Why do you think brands don't utilize the things that, it seems very assumptive that you should be doing it?
I think it's a lot of like not a lot of focus. So I think there's like it's pretty difficult for the transition period. A lot of brands were like, okay, Google Ads, boom, search. Then you have like Amazon search, and they just like push it as much that's the easiest option for them. So
Yeah.
if you want to launch through sponsored products and push that, that's very easy to do. But that's what everyone else does. That's the
Yep.
problem. So everyone else is just doing the easiest option and not trying any harder. But it's harder to go pay for a product video and find a good photographer. It's more work. It's basically where it comes down to. And the more work you put into it and creating these good videos or doing user generated content with your videos and taking it out of TikTok and putting it
Yeah.
into Amazon and all these things require more work, but it's what your competition isn't doing, and that's why it makes it where you have a better basically effectiveness element because it requires more work to do essentially. So that's why I think a lot of brands aren't, but I think they should because it's going to make your advertising costs a lot more effective on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And on that vein is, there used to be a period where like the high end video production of like
that's
the
true.
really cool like cars and stuff, that used to be like what converted. And now it's like the dinky video of a guy doing his hair in the bathroom with your iPhone. Like those are the things that work. And it's, to your point, it's like it is so simple to do, but it's just doing it and putting the effort behind it. But what I also
Yeah.
find is when I talk to a lot of other founders, the ego behind like, oh, like I don't want to make a video that looks like not on brand, but they're not making money not doing it. So it's like the more, I'm not saying like crappy, but like the more
Mhm.
real your video is and the more persona behind it, like now customers love that. And it's not just like the really sexy, cool pictures of your
Mhm.
product or lifestyle. It's the ones that really stand out. So
That's
definitely like,
so funny you say that. I had a client in my previous business. I did TikTok, and we got like 10 videos, and they're like, Victor, like half of these videos are awful. They look awful. I'm like, just let me launch them. I know it's like the worse the quality is, the better it performs.
yeah.
And they go, Victor, I'm not letting you launch these. And I go, please, I guarantee you'll have better results. Just let me launch it. He goes, Victor, no. It's like, please, just give me 3 days and I will show you. And he goes, fine, 3 days, that's it. And I go, I launch them, and then the worst quality ads, like quality, it was like horrible lighting, horrible everything, outperformed it by 3 times. And we ended up launching
Love
it,
that.
and they ended up saving over $5,000 in efficiencies
Yeah.
if we weren't to launch that particular group of ads. So it's really amazing. Like, yes, you're 100% right. A lot of people say, hey, this isn't on brand. This doesn't have the quality that we expect out of it. But you have to think that the lower the quality it is, the more real it looks and the more adapted the consumer is. We're in a really good time period, if you really think about it, that before you had to pay TV commercials. You had to pay
Yeah.
$30,000 for a high end commercial. And like a lot of people don't have $30,000. But now we're in
Mhm.
a time period where you, the founder, if you want to, could literally record a thing on your iPhone of you using the product, and you would have a better performance than a $10,000 video. And if you think about that, that is the biggest opportunity in the world. Like if you really think about it. So it's really amazing where the consumer is right now because you can make these super cheap videos that take you less than 5 minutes to do and have better performance than a $10,000 video. So it's really amazing if you think about
Yeah.
it.
I didn't beat this, but we have so much experience with this on,
Mhm.
we used to have internal arguments of like, oh, we got to do this super high production video. But there's a difference between sales and marketing
True.
and like, or even branding, like the branding side of what you're talking about, the high end stuff. And then sales marketing, where it's like, I'm actually trying to generate revenue and profit. So I'm actually going to stick to what works. So yeah, just do what is going to, the customer wants and what is going to make you money.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Love that
And
TikTok
I
story though.
yeah, yeah. And I think it comes down to exactly what you're saying before, not wrapping up your ego in it and not being afraid to test. So I had a
Yes.
lot of clients before that would say, "Hey Victor, like these particular colors aren't on brand or whatever it may be." But at the same time, you have to be willing to test new concepts that aren't technically on brand because the test is going to be a lot more valuable to you and those learnings are going to be more valuable than actually being on brand or whatever it may be because that insight of you learning that might lead you to say, oh well, maybe we have to rethink that because like
Yep.
think about it, that particular client story I told you about, he then like of saying, hey, we don't want to use that low quality content, it's not going to fit the brand right, him saving $5,000, he rethought that. So
Yeah.
he now pivoted and say, okay, well, how do I get more low quality videos? So but if that scenario, if I wouldn't have like pushed him super hard to use that video, that would have completely changed the course of that, and he would have only kept using high quality stuff, and that pivot would have never happened. But since we did end up using the low quality videos, now he's saying, okay, well, where can we get more of these? So
Yeah.
it's that test is so crucial because it leads you to new avenues that you would have never gone before. So my advice would be not to not be afraid to divert from your brand identity, colors, or whatever it may be, or like to use certain videos. If you have the content and all you have to do is press the two buttons to put on the content, if it's that easy, you should most likely test it and put some ad spend behind it just to see the performance on it. And even though it might not put you guys in the best light, the feedback behind that is going to be even valuable to you as well. You might get some customers that say, "Hey, like what the heck, this video is awful, why would you do that?" Like
Yeah.
even that is valuable. So you say, okay, this is what consumers don't like, this is what consumers do like. Even those insights are going to be valuable to you, and I think everyone should be testing a lot more. Requires a lot more work, but I think everyone should be testing a lot more these days.
Man,
So
it's
yeah.
so funny. I there's two things that just happened in the last couple of weeks of we had this internal argument of like, hey, we don't want to use like TikTok kids to like do our ads. When I say kids, like younger, our
Uh-huh.
demo is between 25 to 45, and this
Hmm.
kid's 21. So he doesn't really look like our demo. We're like, nah, like we don't feel like that's a good fit.
Uh-huh.
And our director of brands like, no, we got to test it, and we did it. Best
Hmm.
performing ad, like by a far. I'm like, all right, we got to stick to that. And then second thing is this Facebook ad we're running to do this giveaway.
Hmm.
We had not intentionally spelt one of the words wrong, hair. We didn't
Yeah.
spell it correct. Best performance in terms of like cost per acquisition. And the moment we changed it to the right way, like the cost per acquisition doubled. And it's like, you just want
Really?
to keep it right. And it's so silly. But like the thumb stoppers, like anything that's going to get someone to just stop scrolling. Because we live in the TikTok generation where everyone wants stuff quick. And the attention span is so low that it's like you got to do something that like is like cringy and it's like, oh wow, that got my attention.
Yeah, and it'll give you more insight into the customer. Like for example, you misspelling miss hair, like you misspelling hair. It's like okay, people are stopping and saying, "Hey, that's weird. That's misspelled," and that gets them to stop. And you might change. You might test. You say like you might go to your content team and say, "Hey, let's test 5 new ads with misspelling hair, and just see how it performs." And that might lead you to another avenue. And you, for example, you using that 21-year-old, now you're considering using more 21-year-olds because
Yeah,
it's having a better effect on it. And the course, like the insights that you gain off of it are just so valuable. I'm religious about A/B testing. If you
yeah,
couldn't tell already, very
couldn't
religious
tell.
about it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm always interested about how the human brain works. For example, if I give you an ad with a blue banner, an ad with an orange banner, and if you choose between, you're going to pick the ad with the orange banner. And that's always been super fascinating to me as like a marketer. That's why I got into marketing, is because I'm interested in how the human brain works. So um, I love A/B testing. Is where I'm going with that. So is there any other insights that you have learned, either if it is marketing or if it is through A/B testing, that you can think on the top of your head right now?
From marketing, A/B testing.
Or it could be advertising. Like maybe you said you talked about your pivot of doubling down on Amazon ads and going more towards Google and search ads. Has that changed? Have been going more into TikTok recently? Have you been going more toward like these other popular social media channels? Have you been pushing ad spend behind that lately?
Not really behind
Mhm.
TikTok, and I don't really have. I could share too much on that, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think it's just yeah, I can't think of anything else on that end.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. And when it comes down to hiring the right employees, so you talk about your brand manager in there and how awesome he is. How did you go through your hiring? We have a huge labor shortage right now in America, obviously, with all this
Yeah.
stuff going on. How did you really find your A players? And I'd love to actually hear about your partner as well and how amazing your partner is and how you kind of went through that process on finding a really good partner, like to team up with. And then also, how did you hire your first A players to really help grow and expand your business as well?
Yeah, well, I got really lucky that my co-founder was is one of my best friends, and we both went to SCSU together,
Cool.
and we were both in a fraternity together, so we were close. And I ended up moving in with him in a house together after college, and we were both working a year into our full time jobs, and um, like he was someone that I trusted, someone that I knew, someone that like motivated me and pushed me to be a better person. So I'd always heard like never go into business with your best friends, and I can understand why, because being able to separate personal from business, it can be very tough.
Yeah.
But we made agreements early on that like, hey, if we're gonna go into business together, like we gotta understand like this is the business and this is our friendship. But I can be honest, and like it wasn't easy. Like the first year and a half, we would have arguments, and at one point, we even thought about not having a business together. But we both knew communication is everything, and he can't read my mind, and I can't read his mind. We got to be real with each other, and the long term goal is the same for each of us. In terms of
And
like
that's
the
go ahead. Go
what
ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
in terms of like A players, like I always tried to like look in my network, and I came from the agency world, so I knew a
mhm.
lot of great people that knew marketing and branding. And so that was Alex, my co-founder, Zach, director of brand. We actually knew each other from San Diego State too, and I knew of
Cool.
him, but he was actually someone that worked with me in another company that I got to see his work ethic. I saw his mind for branding and creativity. And early on, before we even had, it was just all of us working part time. The business was still like a side hustle. Like I'd asked him to do some projects for the business, and he clearly like crushed like branding way better than we ever could. And I don't know, I
Mhm.
think it's just vetting to see how people work with your brand, and like you want people that like believe in what your mission is and like actually live your brand. Like our everyone that works for our company, like they believe in it, and they are what our brand is. Like they're hustlers, they work hard, they genuinely want to master their craft. And I think when you're looking for people, like you want people, the interview questions you want to have, which no one was really interviewed, is just people that came along during the ride, is that they've already shown you that work ethic. But in an interview, it's seeing like, are these the people that when shit goes wrong and like shit's a fan, like, are they going to be there for you during a global pandemic and understand where you're going?
Mhm.
Um, and
How
having that
how do you
experience.
how do you find those people and how do you tell if like obviously in the first interview they're not going to know anything almost anything about the brand and things like that. How how did you go through that process of communicating this is our mission? And then B, how did you realize they really understand that mission and that goal of the brand that you're talking about? Because that's amazing to have employees that believe in that. What was your process to make sure like, hey, like this person does or does not believe in what we're doing here? How do you kind of see that in the person?
Sharing the vision. Like the
Mhm.
vision isn't an overnight or a 2 year, 5 year. It might be 10 years. The vision and being like, hey, this is what our company is. This is where we're going. This is what we expect. Things may change along the way. Hearing what they think about that, and then sharing this is how we work. We're young, hungry. I'm not going to say mother effers. Like, this is what we really believe in. And
Yeah.
like, like asking the questions like, hey, on a Saturday, if something comes up and like the business needs you, are you going to be there? And I'm not saying people need to work on the weekends or anything like that, but the
Yeah.
size of our company, like if something goes down or we need a project to get completed, like what are your thoughts on things like this when it comes up, or on a late night on a Sunday or a Tuesday at 7 p.m.? Like, if this thing goes down, like, will you be there? And can you help us with that? And asking questions that could happen, and making sure that they know the vision, because if they can't tie to the vision and they don't believe in that, like that's not people you want on your team. There's going to
True.
be other people that believe in that.
True.
And yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
would say.
That's a good answer. And I really you touched on this a little bit about the communication aspect that you can't read their mind and you can't and they can't read yours. And it's so important in communication to never assume they know anything of what you're talking about, because in our own brains everything is obvious to us. All the knowledge that we have is like, oh, of course they know that. But the instance you make the assumption that they know something, that leads to miscommunication somewhere in there. So it's
Yeah.
really important to back up for a second. And like, for example, if you were to go in a product page and really go through the mind of a consumer, you have to really dumb yourself down and say, okay, I know nothing about the brand. I know nothing about the product. Now, what the heck does this do? And if you were to read your product page, if you have no idea what you're reading, you're like, okay, well, maybe my product page sucks. And like, you know how you talked about your first product packaging, like having the words really big, like, so you really have to like dumb yourself down a little bit and really take your perspective out of it and say, okay, if I literally knew nothing about the brand, by just looking at this image in the first 3 seconds, can I understand what this is communicating to me? And if you can't, that's an issue. So I think a lot of brand owners and like employees within the company, everything becomes so obvious to them about their product because they know it from inside out. They know it better than the back of their hand. But when it
True.
comes to like they'll go through and create a product page and they're like, of course it does all these things. But if you don't communicate that, you really, really got to dumb yourself down and never assume, because it will always lead to miscommunication in there.
I love that you said that. That is an exercise that we diligently go through before we launch a product, before we send an email, before we create the product creative. Is that, does the under eye cream really do that? Or are we like overselling that? And like, we'd want it to, maybe we can use some of those buzzwords, but all of those things matter. And you as a brand owner, you get to set the expectations. So you don't want to oversell anything. You'd rather just undersell, have a ton of super fans, and get 5-star reviews as much as possible, versus Billy from New Jersey, like thinking that this product does something that it doesn't actually do.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of people on Amazon oversell a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and I think that leads to a lot of miscommunication where it just doesn't work out, because when you oversell things, like, it's not going to cure cancer.
No.
Your apple cider vinegar is not going to cure anything. It's not going to make you look 20 years younger. It just doesn't work like that. So I totally get that. It's kind of funny. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you communicate today that's either been top of mind for you? Whether if it is like the latest things that are happening, inflation, like what, like
Yeah.
all these like crazy things that are happening. Is there anything that's been top of mind for you lately that you've been either concerned about or been working toward to kind of fix right now?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is the recession that we're in right now. I feel like
Yeah.
that's every business owner is probably thinking about preparing for what could happen. And for us, that's been something that is super important. We went through the pandemic and our business was heavily affected in the negative way. We weren't one of the businesses that exploded during COVID. Our
Hmm.
business got cut in a fourth, and that taught us a lot about when things don't go well.
Hmm.
But for us, that's been top of mind in the sense of, we know that there might be a decrease in demand for some of our products. So how do we plan for the future, whether that's payroll, whether that's
Hmm.
future products that we've already made? How many products should we actually launch? And instead of hunkering down, still trying to expand, because a lot of times this is, and some business will go out of business, but how can we maximize saving as much money as possible on things that actually make us money? You still want to test to the point that you made, that you still want to test, but you got to double down on what's making you money and pull
Yeah.
back on what's not. And like things are going to change in the next few months, and hopefully things get better. But that's been something top of mind for us, is looking at our investments for next year. Should we launch all these products? It's going to be contingent based on performance, how much profit we're making. Are we hitting our targets? Cool. Let's keep doubling down and then investing in these other channels. So
Mhm.
just really thinking ahead and being intelligent with our cash flow.
100%. And I really like how you you didn't go full defensive and you're still going slightly offensive even though you might not be making the most like you're not at where you were at COVID, but you're still going on the offensive and still product innovating because
Mhm.
especially on Amazon, the key to success is
Yes.
constantly innovating and finding new categories to go in and just seeing where the customer is and like where they will be. And I think that's just so crucial to constantly be innovating your products and finding like maybe like new ones that things to add on to. And I think that's going to be a huge proponent to like being successful in the future is that innovation and still going offensive because you could have easily gone defensive and said like nope, we're going to keep all the cash we can and we're just going to like double down on Amazon ads and just stay where exactly where we are. But when it comes to expanding the business, it's going to limit your upside in the future. So it's really awesome that you're still going slightly offensive on that side and still trying to expand the business. It's really amazing.
I appreciate you saying that, and
Mhm,
I love what you said, my man. Like,
mhm,
you have to be on the offense. Like, that was the biggest lesson that we learned in COVID, and thank God we did, because in
mhm.
2021 we launched 7 new products. In 2020 we launched one, but we had all these products ready for when there was more demand, because no one was doing their hair in 2020. Everyone had
Yeah.
beanies, grew out hair, barbershops were shut down, travel,
Yeah.
and men, like, the only reason they're going to do their hair is if they're going out. That's the
Mhm.
same mentality that we're at now, is like, we're also not going to be stuck on what our plan is either. Maybe there's a new category that we might get into next year that would be beneficial to those customers, and
Mhm.
maybe there's something that changes, there's a new innovative thing. You got to be on the cutting edge of what's going to work. We also have to be very intelligent about cash flow. Like, is this
Yep.
worth testing, and will this $1 make me two, or is there a path to getting to that?
Mhm. What is your process to really finding that path? Because it can be very difficult to like figuring out the profitability. How do you build that out and see like for example like for your products that you're launching next year and going through that process obviously after the Q&A process you say okay a lot of our customer base would like this. How do you find that product and how do you create that path to profitability?
So number one is, do our customers want it, and then two is, we look at, is there demand for it too on
Mhm.
Amazon, and
Yeah.
how saturated is that market? Is it going to be tough to break into? If it is saturated, then can we compete in that market? Given that Amazon's our biggest sales channel, we got to look at that data, and then based on that is the marketing spend too. Like, what is it going to take to push this product to rank? So we'll look
Yeah.
at those things, and then we'll make a forecast to see like what's the worst path to at least breaking even, and what's the best path to at least making a profit. And based on when we're getting closer to make that first order, manufacture those products, has anything changed? If it has,
Mhm.
okay, well, maybe it's still not a good product, and we'll shelf that, pin it for later, and then pivot to one of the other products that we feel we're more confident on. And that's what I'm saying, is you got to be malleable, because
Yeah.
things change. And maybe they're a product that was like at the bottom of the barrel for us that we have ready to go. Now there's a big trend for that product. Okay, we're going to double down on that product now because there's more demand.
That's really smart. Yeah, that's really smart. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So, Leo, please tell them how to find you, how to find your products, and please tell the audience how to find you.
Yeah, so for my business, you can find us at Craft CRVFT Co on Instagram, on Amazon, on our website craftco.com, or me, Leo Carrillo 3 at on Instagram. But yeah, thanks for having me, Victor. Great chatting with you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. And thank you everyone for our audience for joining as well. This is the Failures and Wins podcast.